there, and welcome to Central Texas Gardener. I'm Tom Spencer. You know, it may be hot, but it's time to get in gear for the cool weather vegetable garden. Today, Erin, Flynn, and Skip Connett from Greengate Farms give us their insider tips, including how to grow the best garlic you'll ever eat. On tour, let's visit the next generation of gardeners at Casis Elementary.
So you can measure along the edge, and then you want to...
At Casis Elementary, students are measuring up. Confused about the metric system? Ask a third grader.
Hey, what do you know? It's 5 centimeters.
They're also eating up their lessons. The Casis Garden classroom started when parents had an idea for a blank sunny spot beyond the parking lot. With teachers, parents, and some professional help, they built a garden to connect students to the origins of food.
The PTA had made some extra money through our fall carnival and said, can we use that as seed money to build a garden? And so the principal was very, very supportive.
We really feel strongly that having hands-on experiences for kids helps them learn. And we wanted to focus on our science curriculum, and what better way for children to learn about science than to have their hands in the dirt.
A lot of classes had been doing gardening sort of outside of their door and just as a classroom garden, and we thought, gosh, it'd be really nice to have a school-wide garden because you could grow a lot more, you could experiment with a lot of different things.
Their new venture brought together parents, teachers, and students to figure out gardening.
What we did is we got these little napkins and we glued radish seeds on them, and there were grids under them. There were 1-inch grids, and then we put them in the ground. And we knew these napkins would decompose. And so the radishes grew in the right amount of spacing.
We are constantly learning and reevaluating and checking ourselves, and that it's okay to stretch and maybe make a mistake and learn from those mistakes.
Maybe 2 people can do the 5-gallon container?
I'll do it with you.
Okay, you guys go get them.
It's not about us teaching them, it's about everyone learning together in a community.
Does anybody know what this measures?
It's become a team effort to connect classroom curriculum with lessons on growing organic food. On Fridays, students can choose to spend lunch recess tending the garden. With hundreds of energetic volunteers from many classrooms, they get a lot done in a short time.
They come and they do the weeding, all the maintenance chores, make sure it gets watered, do any planting that we're planning. Harvesting is always the most popular thing.
Do you think we should put them in one of these barrels? Sure. All right.
Lessons are geared for each grade level.
What do you got?
2 centimeters.
2 centimeters, okay.
So 2.5.
2.5, okay.
We're in our geometry unit with a lot of measurement, area, perimeter, volume, capacity, and it's just the perfect fit for a real-world application for them to be able to take what we're learning in the classroom and use it.
So you've got your length. What about your width and your depth?
10.
All right. Great. That makes it real. I mean, being able to stand out here and measure the area of the flower beds or the volume of the compost area is more realistic for them to get a picture and see it than it is to just learn the formula in a book.
The wheelbarrow is a 10 cubic foot wheelbarrow, which is equal to 75 gallons.
And so we're going to take these yardsticks and we're going to measure a cubic yard.
And also for them to think about the process. So I'm going to have to measure this and figure out how many seeds do I need to buy? And possibly even going even further, how much will that cost me? So how are we going to figure out how many seeds?
192 divided by 2. 192.
And also thinking about how to prove a certain answer. So they measured something and they're really sure that that's what it is, that's accurate. Someone else has a discrepancy. How can I prove my answer? And that's a critical thinking skill.
290 plus 2.
We got 289.
Yeah, you rounded. Yeah, we rounded it.
With their sundial, students connect to how the sun's position impacts the seasons and their crops. Science and gardening join hands to nourish the crops with liquid seaweed, a natural fertilizer. The Casis garden teaches natural pest control, like for fire ants. But the children also learn to recognize beneficial insects and how broadband insecticides harm them.
We found larvae! I know! I found larvae.
It's a long-term picture they're imprinting, how all of us impact our ecosystem.
It comes up every day in our classrooms, regardless of whether it's math or science or we're reading a novel or learning about what other cultures are doing, being able to tie into how what we're doing to be more self-sustaining and reduce and help the environment ties to everything that we discuss in class.
Water restrictions in 2009 made another important connection when they lost their crops.
They learned about the weather cycles from, learning about the drought and the water restrictions and how it affects our food supply.
Now that's when it really hits home.
Yes, take them. Take them, take them, take them. They're cute. Oh, another taste.
I come out here at lunchtime and I see children eating things that most kids typically wouldn't put in their mouths. And it's great to see them eating eggplant and asparagus and mint and all kinds of other fruits and vegetables that are just a wonderful part of a healthy, organic, nutritious diet.
The Casis gardeners are also learning how to propagate ornamental native plants from seed to feed their wildlife. And it's never too early to start.
Oh, what are you going to do with that? Can you eat it? My daughter is at the daycare here we have for teachers, and it starts at 6 weeks. And last week I was out here with the toddlers, the 1 and 2 year olds, and we were looking at ladybugs and worms with magnifying glasses and planting herbs and eating carrots right out of the garden. So our program is not only for kindergarten through 5th grade, but it's also it starts at 6 weeks. So we're literally starting at the ground up.
Yeah. And they said.
Lillian tastes it?
Yeah.
On the camera, huh?
So how do the children grade this project?
Getting our hands dirty and just having fun here. It's really awesome. Nice program. Yeah, we love it.
Our thanks to the kids at Casis Elementary for opening their garden gates to us. It's always great to see young ones with their hands in the soil and growing the plants. So thanks again for sharing with us. Right now we're going to be talking about Greengate Farms and getting ready for the fall garden. Greengate Farms is a local farm, community-supported agriculture, and we're joined by Erin Flynn and Skip Connett. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so CSA, community-supported agriculture. Big sounding concept, but really simple the way it lives in the ground, right?
It's extremely simple, and it's the reason we started our farm. We wanted our farm to be open to the community and really pull people in. And so CSA is really, it's just a way of turning farming around, because in the past, farmers would work for months and months and months. Gardeners know what that's like. And then, if you're lucky, someone will come by and buy your food at a fair price. But that doesn't always happen. And so a lot of farmers go out of business because they can't get paid for their work. So what happens with the CSA is it really turns it around, and we have members who say, I'm going to support you throughout this growing season, and I'm going to support you at the beginning of the season. And that's really, really important to farmers, because that way we know how much to plant, we know how many members we have, but we also have an income. And so we can pay our workers, we can buy our seed, and it kicks off the season. And it really means a lot to have our members supporting us. It makes all the difference, because we know who we're growing for.
So the members benefit because they're getting fresh produce. And how does that work, real briefly?
So yeah, they come each week to our farm, and whatever we're growing, whatever's in season, they will get a box full of vegetables, usually about 9 different varieties.
Wow.
So right now, in the summer, it kind of cuts down to about 5 because of, what can grow well here. But at any given time, they're getting 8 to 10 things, and it's enough to feed a family of 4. We say, if they're vegetarians, maybe less, but they can, for $35, $38 a week, they can get all their vegetables that they need.
And locally grown, it doesn't have to be flown across the world.
No, it's certified organic.
That's great.
We're certified.
That's great.
We do all natural practices, and we have a variety, probably 50 varieties of vegetables at any one time. So.
We also have a farm stand at our farm, because it's not just limited to a CSA. And what we tell people is you can come see where your food is raised and grown. And so you can even participate in the harvest if you want.
Well,
we have U-Pick.
And I bet a lot of people would be interested in doing that. Our audience, we have all these home gardeners who are very enthusiastic about supporting agriculture, but also getting their hands dirty and doing the work themselves. And at this time of year, we're heading into that fall garden. And for so many of us, this is really the best time for vegetable gardening. So at this time of year in September, what are you guys doing on the farm right now?
Well, I love the fall. The fall to me, after the hot summer and you know that the bugs are dying, the plants are headed down, they've done all their damage,
right.
And you got the rest of the year. And what's great about farming here in Central Texas is we can go all year round. So the winter, a lot of my friends up north are, winding down now, worried about the frost and get everything out of the fields in time, and we're just starting.
Right.
The frost is light enough that a lot of the vegetables can get through it without too much work. We do put some row cover on with some deep frost, but a lot of the cool weather crops now that we're planting for, all the brassicas, broccoli, kale, collards, Brussels sprouts, they're getting in the garden right now. We've put them in August, and we get transplants to put them out right now, and they'll be ready by the end of October, early November.
So for the home gardener, what they may be hearing, you're putting them out, but that doesn't mean seeds. You're putting out things you've already started.
Yeah, very few things are directly seeded. The germination rate is just so inconsistent that
you do it in a controlled environment.
So I would recommend that you go find a good nursery, and if you can get organic stock.
Or a plant sale. We're kicking off our CSA with a plant sale.
So
good. Check with your local farmer, because they might have some plants available for planting.
Okay.
And some varieties that you won't find if you go to Home Depot or so. We really focus on some of the heirlooms, some of the vegetables that are grown for taste and that do well here in Texas. We've, after 5 years of working at this, we've figured out what does well and what doesn't. And there's a lot of things that we would love to grow, and they just can't handle either the extreme heat, the drought, or whatever. So, but the fall is really, it's hard to mess up in the fall.
Yeah. Well, you've already mentioned the brassicas, and I want to talk about some other plant families. But before we do that, I want to, for those who are playing catch up out there, and a lot of us are, we're late behind the 8 ball on a lot of stuff, right? What about soil preparation? A lot of our folks out there, they had their spring garden, some things limped along through the summer. It's cool enough now that they're maybe beginning to look outside again.
And it might be full of weeds.
Right. So what's the best thing to do in terms of the soil?
Well, if you have a small plot, obviously you need to use every inch of it, and you can't let it go fallow. We like to let some of our fields get a rest after the summer because they put on a lot of tomatoes and peppers and so forth. But at the same time, we have to go in there and start all over again on a lot of the fields. And so what we'll do is we make our own compost. That's an advantage of being on the farm, and we get scraps from Whole Foods and leaves, and so we've got our own compost to use. But you're going to have to amend the soil right now. There's no need to get a soil test, I don't think. But the most important thing is that you get some organic matter back in there because of the heat for the summer has burned it all up.
Right.
So if you've got some mulched leaves there, work those into the soil. The soil's also going to be very dry. So if you're not using drip tape, some sort of irrigation system, you need to get your beds fairly wet and do it slowly over a couple of days to get so you can get down in there and work the soil, get that organic matter in there, and get the bed really ready for some germination.
That's a good tip to get the soil moist enough so that when you do turn it, it's just not like turning rocks.
And cool it down. I mean, the biggest the problem we have right now is the heat has been there. The soil in September is still 90 degrees, and a lot of things will just burn up in that heat.
So let's go back and talk about some of the other things that do really well during the fall. What are some of the other things that you like to put in the ground at this time, and talk about some of the different tips for growing them well?
One of the things we try and do in our CSA is to provide some of the old standbys that everyone loves, but also give them some new flavors and new varieties. Kohlrabi is one of those. It does really well in the winter here, and it has a big baseball-sized head that you can peel off and put in your salad. It's almost like a turnip in some ways, but it's sweeter. The leaves can be used to put in to cook down, to braise. High curate turnips are similar to that, and they have an incredible sweet taste. They're the size of a golf ball.
They're amazing.
They're not your
You can eat them right out of the field. And I'm not a turnip girl, but they're so incredible, and they're so satisfying. You know? One thing people can do is Slow Food has an arc of taste that lists these flavors that are unusual, but really satisfying. So we go to the Slow Food website. That's a good place to check out and get some growing ideas.
Right.
But expand your horizon. Don't go to the same seed company or go to this different nursery and see what's out there, because a lot of farmers have experience of what will do well here. Kales do great this time of year, and they'll go all winter. They won't have a problem.
And there's so much you can do with kale, and again, I think if people just think of it as, you know, in most basic form, but you go to like the websites you were referencing and others, you can come up with so many creative ways to use these crops.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
One of our favorites is green garlic this time of year. It's in the ground now. In about a month or so, it'll be about this tall. And, you know, we use it in place of a lot of scallions because it has a longer lasting in the storage in the refrigerator, but also it just has this mild flavor. It's actually elephant garlic is what we grow, and it's actually in the leek family, so it has a much milder taste than a lot of the hardneck garlics. And it's difficult to grow hardneck garlic here in the South, but elephant garlic does incredibly well. And we've got all of our CSA members addicted to it because they use it for all their sautés. And
sure.
It's a great opportunity to
Something a cross between a leek and a garlic sounds perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's easy to start. You just go to the grocery store and get some organic elephant garlic and then plant it. Just get it started.
Right.
And and you can use it at every stage. One thing that I always do when Skip's growing massive amounts of things is I wait till they bloom. So there's a garlic scape, which has a really unusual head on it, and we put those in bouquets.
Yeah.
So you can use every stage of the plant.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the lettuces, which are my favorite thing for the winter garden, and that is a really great thing. Now, you might want to wait still a little time to put those out.
Yeah, that heat still here in Central Texas, you know, last year we had 90 degrees in September, and unless you have sprinkler systems, I mean, we use overhead sprinklers to get ours up and going.
Right.
Arugula will do okay. Arugula is much better in the heat.
You got to stay up with things in the beginning of the fall, otherwise you will lose them.
Even growing under shade.
Right.
You know, trying to control the temperature that way.
Yeah. Real briefly, let's talk about the market hours.
Yeah. We're open on Tuesday evenings from 4 to 6, Fridays from 12 to 6, and then Saturdays 10 to 2.
Okay.
And we have a farm stand. It's open to the public. It's all certified organic. We sell not only our vegetables, but we try and make other meats available from local farmers. So there's everything there. One-stop shop.
Okay, great. And greengatefarms.net is the website. I hope folks will visit that and visit you. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next is Daphne Richards.
Welcome to Down to Earth. Our question today is one sent in from a viewer who has some red oak leaves with areas that you can see through but no actual holes. Most of the leaves on the tree are not damaged and the overall health of the tree is good. So Bob's question is this a disease, an insect, or something else entirely? Well, this type of damage is what we call skeletonized, and it's definitely caused by an insect and not a disease. The pattern of damage that you see is caused by insect feeding, and a disease would create some spotting, then overall yellowing. Or it might actually have some fungal spores that you could see with a hand lens. There are many different types of insects that could be responsible for this damage, but once you see the damage, the insect's usually gone. So at this point, I would suggest just ignoring the issue. If the insects are gone, there's nothing you can do anyway. There's no spray you can apply or anything you can do to kill insects that are not there anymore. And there's no way to repair the damage to these leaves. These insects won't be back until the same time next year, but even next year, you're not likely to see the insects before you see the damage. So again, it'll be too late, but these insects don't do a lot of damage to the tree, and the tree will drop its leaves in the fall and put on new ones in the spring, so the damage is usually not enough to harm the tree long term or anything to worry about. Our plant this week is Eupatorium greggii, Greg's blue mist flower, also known as Conoclinum greggii. It is a perennial and it's root hardy to 0 degrees, which makes it great for those harsh winters that we occasionally have. And after last year's harsh winter, my blue mist flower emerged from its roots very late and it never flowered this year, so that might have also happened to you if you already have one. But if our winters are less cold this year, we'll have a beautiful show of puffy light blue flowers. And next spring, those will be beautiful for you. So with that flat landing pad on those flowers, butterflies often use this as a source of nectar. This plant thrives in partial shade, very low water, but it can tolerate our heavy clay soils. It usually stays 1 to 2 feet tall, but spreads easily in width by its roots. To do this week, you need to start watering all your trees slowly and deeply at the drip line. This may not make sense as the temperatures are a little cooler than summer and we're moving into fall, but watering in preparation for winter dormancy gives trees what they need to concentrate on underground growth while their top growth is dormant. So late summer and early fall watering is very important, and especially important for fruit trees. This autumn's watering has a great effect on next spring's fruit load, and if fruit trees don't get enough water this year, the crop next year will be greatly diminished. We'd love to hear from you. Please visit klru.org/CTG to send us your question or plant of the week from your garden.
Thanks, Daphne. Now let's check in with John Dromgoole for Backyard Basics.
Hello, gardening friends. Welcome to Backyard Basics. One of the things that we find on soil tests quite a bit here in Central Texas is a lack of nitrogen. When you get these tests in, there's different labs, but you'll pretty much see the same thing, that nitrogen is very low. That's what that red color indicates on this one. Other ingredients are high, other nutrients are in there. Some are adequate. This is marginal right here, but this is the nitrogen, and it is low. And we see that quite frequently. So for the natural gardener, the organic gardener, there are several options for the gardener to use. And there are a bunch of organic and natural fertilizers available on the market around here. One of the essential things, though, about this being available, these things are not always available to the garden. They have to go through a process where the microorganisms can convert them into an available form. So that's how the organic technique works. And so one of the things that we start with is our home compost pile. This is a real good place to build some of the compost that we need in the garden, because this is what holds it in place. This compost right here is essential for the nitrogen to be in that form. This is an energy source for the bacteria, and then the food scraps are the feed for the bacteria. So we're doing the same thing. We add a lot of compost to the garden, and then when we add these nutrients, that's the feed for the microorganisms, and they change it into that available form. There's a whole bunch of them available, many options for you. For example, in a liquid style, this is fish emulsion right here. This is about 3% nitrogen. This one right here is about 2% nitrogen. You'll find different levels of that at the nurseries, usually pretty low, but very effective. This type of nitrogen is more quickly available to the plants, and I even like to use it as a foliar feed when I notice that the leaves are kind of getting yellow, and they would just be a pale yellow. There wouldn't be any markings, and the veins wouldn't be darker in the leaf yellow. It's just a pale yellow and a lack of vigor in the plant. So we'll go through some of these options right here. One of the most natural ones of them all is earthworm castings. Earthworm castings is 1% nitrogen, but when you put a seedling in, if you add it to the growing medium right under the seedling or a seed starter, they jump. They have a great start. They're not overfed, but they have that 1% nitrogen. Here's another one right here. We find this one a lot, coffee grounds. Coffee grounds can also be up to 2%, generally in that 1 to 2% range of nitrogen. This is a good way to amend the soil. It opens the soil up also. Probably those other parts are more necessary than just the nitrogen itself, because it fluffs up the soil very nicely. Here's another one that we see a lot out there. This is turkey compost. It's about 2% nitrogen. Here's one that rosarians really love. Everybody, when they use alfalfa meal, sees the benefit of this great one. It's a 3-1-2 formula, and it has triacanthanol, which is something that promotes growth. This is what the rosarians love about it. Cottonseed meal, this is available in the area. Now we get the nitrogen going up a little bit. This is a 7-2-1, so 7% nitrogen in this one, and it helps acidify the soil over time just a little bit. The granular organic fertilizers, there's a whole bunch of them out there. This one is an 8-2-4, so it's 8% nitrogen. That's essential. This is a good way to feed the lawn, as a matter of fact, one of those areas that needs a lot of nitrogen. And here's feather meal. This is probably one of the highest sources of nitrogen out there, there, it's at 1200. So if you need a bunch of nitrogen, or you want an economical way to put nitrogen out there, in other words, you could use this at half of its recommended rate, then that's another good one. And then finally, when you're mowing your lawn, go ahead and leave the grass clippings. Much of the fertilizer that was in the soil is now in the grass clipping itself. So when we're mowing, we always use a mulching mower so that the blades are small, don't create a thatch down there, and then that extra nitrogen that would be wasted if you gathered it, although you could put it in the compost pile if you had thatch. But still, that's one of the best ways for the organic gardener or any gardener to keep the nitrogen going. Just leave the leaves out there. So as you can see, there are many options, but the most important thing is you have to have some compost in the soil first, and then these other things work very well, or it'll be a very, very slow release. So these are the options, natural and organic fertilizers. When you do a soil test and you see it's low in nitrogen, these are some of the best options. For Backyard Basics, I'm John Dromgoole. I'll see you next time.
Visit klru.org/CTG to watch online, get more tips, and read our weekly blog. Next week, tune in for designer Pam Pennick's hands-on tips. Until then, I'll see you in the garden.
To learn about today's program, watch online, and follow CTG's blog, check out klru.org/CTG.